Did you not hear what I was saying? Did you not understand the point I was making? It's not about religion. It's more so about countries in the region that recognize Israel's position as a settler colonial entity and a proxy of the West. Speaking of which, that's still not changing the dynamic, obviously. Here is a new poll that shows Israel's unpopular across the West. Even in Hungary, where state propaganda and paid Orban flunkies like Rod Dreher promote it, it's still minus 17%. The Western country where it's the most popular is the United States of America, minus 8 net popularity. There it is. In the Netherlands, Israel has a 45% very unfavorable, 5% very unfavorable rating. In the United States, that is at 19%, and somewhat unfavorable is at 34%, whereas somewhat favorable is at 31%, and very favorable is at 13%. In Germany, which is the only country that I think is closely resembles America's interest in Israel, like that's how aggressive they are. Even in Germany, it's 15% very unfavorable, 49% somewhat unfavorable. In Sweden, 41% very unfavorable, 35% somewhat favorable. 24 country median is 69% unfavorable. Nice. US matched the views of Hungary. Not a great comparison. I mean, that makes sense. But even in Hungary, 20% very unfavorable, 33% somewhat unfavorable. Is this good? Yes. It is good. It's good because like people are waking up to what Israel has been doing. Israel is a pariah state in the minds of regular Americans, in the minds of regular Westerners. Here is the source, by the way. Most countries across 24 surveyed countries, most people across 24 surveyed countries have negative views of Israel and Netanyahu. Turkey, 84% very unfavorable view of Israel. Holy. Are you going to react to how the radical left dehumanizes the right by Remnant 777? No. That sounds idiotic. Especially because the right dehumanizes themselves by associating themselves with incredibly stupid fascist principles. Now, Nigeria, what the is Nigeria on, bro? Kenya and Nigeria, 32% favorable, 19% very favorable in Kenya, 35% favorable, somewhat favorable, 24% very favorable in Nigeria. What happened? What the evangelical Christians? Is that what it is? They don't got internet? What the? South Africa is crazy, by the way. No, it makes sense. 37% unfavorable, 15% somewhat unfavorable versus 19 and 15. As a Nigerian, Israel is seen as a friend of Christianity. Oh, that kind of makes sense. Explain Turkey. I'm losing my mind. What do you mean? Explain Turkey. It makes complete sense, brother. What are you talking about? I told you in especially post one, Turkey is a majority Muslim country in the region that has always obviously had a point of view about Western imperialism, even if they don't recognize that they themselves are also servants of Western empire. Okay? The 10 countries with the most negative views of Israel were Turkey at 93%, Indonesia at 80%, Japan at 79%, the Netherlands at 78%, Spain at 75%, Sweden at 75%, Australia at 74%, Greece at 72%, Italy at 66%, and Germany at 64%. Amazing. We got to get those numbers up. As I always say, if you think you hate Israel, you don't hate Israel enough, okay? United States of America as well. And I suspect that it's not all about religion, bro. No, that's why I said Turkey sees, everyone in that region sees Israel as Western interference in the affairs of the region that actually violates other countries' sovereignty and autonomy. Okay? Did you not hear what I was saying? Did you not understand the point I was making? It's not about religion. It's more so about countries in the region that recognize Israel's position as a settler colonial entity and a proxy of the West. Yeah, Ireland numbers would be nice. Standing with Turkey for sure. Yeah, most likely. And it's not shocking that Irish people have that kind of opinion as well. So if not for NATO, Turks would have already formed a coalition of the willing. I mean, if not for NATO, Turkey probably would be a communist bloc country. So if NATO didn't exist in Turkey, Turkey would be a socialist country right now. And who knows what America would have done to Turkey in that process. Turkey would probably resemble Iran in some ways, being shut out from the EU entirely, as it already has been. And also, I mean, the world would be very different. I think the region would be very different. Turkey has always been an extension of American empire as a consequence of NATO and a very valuable ally in the Cold War. If Turkey was not a NATO nation, the Cold War would look different. The USSR might still exist. Like outside of Israel, I would say outside of Israel and Saudi Arabia, Turkey is perhaps even more important than Saudi Arabia to America's foreign policy intervention in the region. More like as a consequence of their post-World War I nationalist origins, yes, that was the starting point for sure of Kemalist attitudes. Okay. Having said that, there was still a lot of socialist mobilization in the country. There still is more socialist mobilization in the country of Turkey as opposed to somewhere like the United States of America. Anyway, conversely, the countries with the most favorable views of Israel were Nigeria, 59%, Kenya, 50%, the US, 45%, India, 34%, and South Africa. Oh my God. Dude, top 10 nations with the most favorable view of Israel is after Nigeria, every single one is 50% or lower. Israel is so cooked. That's crazy. Only one country has an above water approval rating for Israel. Oh my Lord. Biggest mistake of Kemalist libs is their love or fetishization for some for the Western civilization, which ended up with Turkey joining NATO and practically becoming a pair of tongs to deal with Middle Eastern issues. Yes. But it's also funny because Turks literally hate Western intervention. That's what's so interesting about it. Turks hate Western intervention. Look at the numbers on Israel. Turkey is an ally to Israel, and yet the Turkish government's communiques and the way that they communicate about Israel is very different, right? You would think that they're the number one op of Israel. And yet, I mean, this is the reason why. This is the reason why. Turks hate Western intervention and don't recognize that they serve Western interests and are a firm and committed partner in Western intervention in the region. It's that simple. Not like Turks would be like, oh, Yankees coming into this country and doing crazy stuff in the region, and then they won't even ask the question why there's so many American military bases. Look. Sen bizim hakkımızda konuşma, Hizbullahçı. Bak. Hizbullahçı. This guy goes, don't talk about us, you Hezbollah supporter. Oh, Turks also hate Iran. That's the other thing. And it's not even necessarily about like sectarian infighting, like Shia Sunni divide or anything like that. They just despise Iran and they despise Hezbollah. The West have found and support two of the most extremist ideologies, Zionist and Wahhabi Saudi. Who don't Turks hate? Name one neighbor they don't. Azerbaijan. Easy. Easiest answer of all time. Anyway, obviously, things are changing, attitudes are shifting, and it will continue to shift further as the media starts covering the process more honestly. Okay, the media will start covering the situation on the ground more honestly, and that will only increase. Like there is no point from here on out. There will be no point where like Israel recovers its popularity. Okay. Why is Azerbaijan so pro-Israel? Sorry if you covered it before, because Azerbaijan did an ethnic cleansing campaign in Karabakh of the Armenians that live there, and they were able to conduct this ethnic cleansing campaign, forced displacement campaign, with Israeli weapons and Israeli technology. Azerbaijan also is an energy provider to many countries, but most importantly, Israel. They sell energy to Israel by way of Turkey. The Baku to Tel Aviv energy grid runs through Turkey. And Israel, in exchange for said energy, will give them weapons that they can use against the Armenians. Yeah, Artsakh. Azerbaijan is also a forward operating base for Israeli covert ops into Iran. Yes, there are many Azeris that live in Iran. It's a major ethnic group. Okay? And therefore, there is a direct entry point into Iran as well by way of the connection through Azerbaijan. So Israel will utilize Azerbaijan as a forward operating base for intelligence operations, covert operations within Iran. There are more Azeris in Iran than there are in Azerbaijan. And Azeris, of course, are Turkic. That's the other thing. So there is that connection with Turkey as well. There are many nations all around Asia that are Turkic. Turkey obviously keeps tabs on all of these Turkic nations, and also will offer logistical support, training, and intelligence to the Turkic nations and their militaries. This does not mean that all Azeris living in Iran are ops or anything. I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that there are some that can be used in that way by the Israeli state. Nurse, he got out and is talking about how everyone's Turkish again. No, all jokes aside, I'm not doing a pan-Turanist argument. I'm just simply telling you Turkey's involvement with other countries that have Turkic populations, all the way to Xinjiang, as a matter of fact. Like, this isn't a defense of China's actions in Xinjiang in terms of mass surveillance, dragnets, and cultural erasure. But it is not an accident that there are Uyghur Turks that are literally fighting in Syria, and they're basically Salafists. They're incredibly fucking radicalized, fundamentalist, ISIS-style operatives that are literally, technically, I guess, under the banner of China, and yet they are being trained by the Turkish government. How does that work? Why are Uyghur Turks fighting in fucking Syria alongside the rest of the Turkish militants, Turkish-backed militants that are, of course, once again, funded by NATO? Something to consider.